Welcome back to yet another live broadcast on your favorite football updates channel. That's at Footballtribe UG. I hope you've had a wonderful end to the week. It's been a Friday. I hope you did enjoy it. And yeah, we are back. It's always good to be back to discuss the latest from the world of football, transfers, and much more. So allow me update, titles just been following up here on a game between Brentford and Borussia Mönchengladbach that has ended, in a 2-all draw between the two sides, between the German Bundesliga side and the Premier League side. So that's what I've been catching up on, and that's why we are minutes late. Earlier on, I tried to watch the game between Newcastle and Espanyol, but my feet failed to pull through. Yes, Robert, I'm back. Hi, LFC. Good to have you back. How is Spain? How are you? How is the vacation treating you? I hope everything is okay for you on that end. What's exciting in Spain? In whatever regard that you may have received it. What's exciting from Spain? If any. But it's good to be back. Oh, you're actually already back home. Sometimes I forget that you guys roam around Europe like it's moving between cities of the same country. Sometimes I tend to forget that because the mobility or the transition within our own boundaries is much difficult because of when we compare to you guys in the European Union. But it's all good. It's all good. I hope you've had a wonderful day. Yeah, I hope you've had a good day. Allow me to have audios tested on this end so that we'll make sure everything does check out. We didn't want to have a false start as we've had one too many times before. Okay, we are good to go. We are good to go. More's intention on avoiding anything like that. Sometimes it's the quality of the sound that I need to pick up on and know that there's no echoes and glitches here and there and things like that. But looks like everything is good. Looks like everything is good. It does check out well. Anyways, like our headlines reads, Uganda Cranes its thump Guinea. Guinea's under 23 are the ones representing Guinea there in the African Nations Championships that are ongoing between Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda. Those are the host nations of the tournament. Chelsea beat up against Bayer Leverkusen by 2-0. We'll look at a little bit about that. A debutant getting his name on the score sheet. Athletic Bilbao will be up against Arsenal in the Emirates Cup tomorrow. That's Saturday. We'll get to look at that. Our team says Mahaba. Is it Mehaba or Mahaba? Whatever that means, but you say hi, Altine. Good to have you on the broadcast. Kindly like the broadcast. For those of you that are just joining us, my name is Robert Esakos and I'm coming to you live from Kampala, Uganda. Do let me know where you're joining us from this evening. I can see Altine says he's joining us from Turkey. It's always good to see another member from Turkey. One of our usual suspects, Safa Ali, a Fenerbahce fan, has sort of gone AWOL on us or Turkey. Okay, sometimes I know I'm more accustomed to pronouncing it as Turkey, but I know it's Turkey, something like that. But apologies if that rubbed you the wrong way. One of our usual suspects in Safa Ali, a Fenerbahce fan, we've not seen him around for the last, I think, 1 week or so. Perhaps even unfortunate, but I hope he's doing well. So it's a pleasure to have you. So for those of you that are just joining us, kindly like the broadcast, but also consider subscribing to the channel and help me grow to 2,000 subscribers. That's the objective at the moment. So do me that absolute honor and favor and click the subscribe button, but also leave me a like on this broadcast. Let me know where you're joining us from. I'll be reading all your comments. We'll be discussing them. What you've just joined is a football channel. Fenerbahce. Oh, you send lots of love. So it's a football channel where we get to discuss the Premier League and slightly beyond, depending on what there is around, the globe when it comes to football. Predominantly the Premier League and other major footballing events that do come to your way. So tonight we will kick things off with the African Nations Championships from the Mandela National Stadium, Namboole, where Uganda Cranes have just beaten up against Guinea by 3-0, sort of to recover from their opening defeat of a similar scoreline when they lost to Algeria. On match day 1 for the Uganda Cranes, they were beaten by Algeria by 3-0 at their own home turf. And now they've returned the favor to Guinea's under-23, who are representing their nation in this edition of the African Nations Championships, commonly known as Chad. The goals were scored by Regan Mpande, as well as Regan Mpande was the goal scorer. That was in the first half. Then we did have a penalty by Alan Okello, who is also the captain. Very, very dynamic, interesting young player there who does play for Vipers Football Club. And then Regan Mpande plays for Sports Club Villa here domestically, while the other goal was scored by Ahim Bisibwe. Those were the goal scorers for the Uganda Cranes. In the earlier fixture between South Africa and Algeria, that one ended in a 1-1 draw between the two sides, with Bel Hosseini as scoring for Algeria, while Thabiso did score for South Africa. I see I have a couple of comments to get to. Alwin says, "Hi, dear bro, how are you? I'm good. Alwin, good to have you back on the broadcast. Kindly like the broadcast, but it's a pleasure to have you around." Rodrigo the Goat says, "Hi, buddy. Lamine Yamal, Mo Salah, Saka, Emi Martinez, Thuram, or number 7, no numbers, or number 7, Mastantuano Mbappe is not coming. He was mad. I have a player who has a bright future, and Athletic win PSG and Arsenal." Okay. A couple of mixed messages I did get from that one, but thank you so much, Rodrigo the Goat, for that comment. Tristan Leonard, hi, good to have you on the podcast. Tristan has said, "I liked and subscribed." Thank you so much. Tristan, where are you joining us from? Dixon Sida, where are you joining us from? Hi, good to have you on the broadcast. So it was a very interesting performance from the Uganda Cranes, and very, very dominant performance, by the way. You say, "Come on, Uganda." That means you're an Arsenal fan. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Kindly like the broadcast, but also consider subscribing to the channel, since it's the first time for me, to the best of my recollection, of seeing you here at Dixon Sida. So Uganda Cranes were quite dominant. They needed to bounce back from that defeat from match day 1. In fact, the national team, coaches led by Morevi Kwaso for this particular tournament were summoned to the State House a couple of days gone by the country's first lady, who also doubles as the Minister for Education and Sports, there to pose serious questions, because she had been very, very disappointed in the results that the Uganda Cranes were at the receiving end of on Monday. So she was very disappointed. She was there in the VIP stands watching the game as the Minister for Sports. So she's the Cabinet Minister for Education and Sports. That's the whole ministry, or line ministry, that is spearheaded. But also she's the chairperson of the organizing committee for Chad here in the country. So she was telling the technical team that, look, the country has invested a lot in this. It has a lot going for it. We promised you 1.2 billion shillings for every win. 1.2 billion shillings is about what? Is about somewhere around $300,000 per win. So, which is a very, very huge promise. Rodrigo says, "Ask him if he can be there in the morning or night or not." Rodrigo is not in the chat for 90 minutes, and then the world is not coming. He will start to win all. Then I'm from the USA, but I'm in South Africa. Wow, okay. How is South Africa treating you? Are you on holiday? Dixon Sida is Dixon Sida he says is in India. Good to have another member from India. By the way, my colleagues from India, what's happened in the last couple of weeks? I've missed you guys quite a lot. Are you Indian? No, I'm not Indian. I'm Ugandan, but we do have a very large Indian community back here in Uganda. Very, very good South Africa. Tristan, and next time when as you plan to visit Africa, consider visiting the Pearl of Africa as well. That's Uganda for you. Very, very beautiful country. Very, very beautiful climate. But what state of the US are you from? We do have a couple of colleagues from Chicago, from Oklahoma. Yeah, for some of the fans that we've had on the podcast. Then have I missed out on any comments? Riyadh, yes, Riyadh says there are white people in Uganda. Yes, there are white people, and not white people in terms of a native community, but in terms of predominantly expats, and then you know what should I call them? Embassy people, people that are representing their respective countries at respective embassies, and then you also have those that have transitioned from their respective countries to Uganda as citizens. So there's also that community. So there's a good number of those. You predominantly find them in the capital city, Kampala, but also in some other parts of the country. So we do have Pakistanis. We are the largest refugee host nation. So we do have, you know, people from all walks of life, from all sorts of countries: Eritrea, Ethiopia, Djibouti. You find Pakistanis, you find the Indian community, but that dates as far back as the 1800 and things like that. So, hi Pedri, welcome back from the honeymoon, or you're still enjoying your honeymoon? Because it looks like you got wedded and you are on the honeymoon, and your wife was telling you not to turn on, to turn on your phone. Uganda cricket team doing well. Yes, they were doing well. I think was it at the T20. So I do not follow cricket that much. I'll be very honest. But once in a while, I'll latch on a couple of news regarding the cricket cranes, as they are called. Is Uganda a nice country to live in? I'm from South Africa, Cape Town. Yeah, very, very nice country to live in, predominantly with, both hot and, rainy seasons. At the moment, it's a hot season, but climate is all good, and you can count on that. So many beautiful places to visit around. Yes, Sida was giving me the word, yes, diplomats. Yes, foreign diplomats. A good number of those. Yes, I am on holiday in Italy. How is Italy? Is Uganda rich? Yes, Uganda is rich in terms of natural resources, in terms of welcoming people, in terms of natural beauty and endowment. We have about 160, freshwater lakes, both seasonal and permanent lakes. We have so many rivers, we have so many swamps, so many national parks and game reserves, places that you can visit, mountains that you can visit, bird viewing, so there's plenty to see in Africa. Then you see, in Uganda. Leonard Tristan says, I'm from America, but I am in South Africa. In America, I'm from New York. Okay. Oh, you're a New Yorker. New Yorkers are very fast speakers. Usually when you're speaking to a New Yorker for the first time, chances are you're going to say pardon a good number of times, because they are fast speakers. Then what else do I know about New York? Maybe the bit of congestion, and they are very, very expensive, housing market in New York. It's very, very expensive to live in New York. How is your wife at Luca? Who is Luca? Luca, they're asking. Oh, I get the joke. You recently got married? No. Dixon is asking about Idi Amin, a former Ugandan president between 1971 to 1979. I do not know why. He's a very, very sort of renowned name for both good and bad reasons, depending on what side of the aisle you stand. Testers of life, how is it? Tester is from South Africa, particularly from the region of Gauteng. It's good to have you. bro, but Cape Town is very, very rich and beautiful. Yes, Cape Town is a very, very rich, region of South Africa. Very rich and very beautiful. That is without a doubt. But particularly, you will draw some comparisons when you do come to Uganda. Not in terms of the man-made infrastructure, but in terms of natural beauty and endowment. Dixon says a lot of tensions in the Rwanda DRC border. Those have subsided. Those have subsided. Ever since Rwanda and DRC Congo reached that agreement over there in the USA, those tensions have sort of subsided. But you did mention Amin Dada. Some speak very fondly of him. Others speak very horribly of him, but he did a lot of good things for this country. Although he was not a perfect man, he had a lot of things that did not go well as well. That's what I can say about that. Christian, you say they have Starbucks and Gucci. No, we do not have Starbucks and Gucci, but we do have so many good coffee shops that you can and cafes that you can visit. Remember, Uganda is one of the largest coffee exporters in the world, and in Africa, it oscillates between usually number 1 and number 3. Sometimes number 2 ahead of Ethiopia, behind Ethiopia, or sometimes ahead of Ethiopia. So we're a very, very good country known for coffee. Are you a good person? I will let you be the judge of that. In Cape Town, okay, that's good. That's good. In terms of by economic measures and standards, South Africa are miles ahead of Uganda. That's the honest bit. Uganda is still a third world country, trying to step up slowly by slowly within the echelons of the lower middle income class. Tristan, you stay in Cape Town. Yes, Tristan is from the USA, but currently in Cape Town, South Africa. So Tester, if he wishes to visit Gauteng, you guys can, you can give him a few pointers on what places to add to his bucket list as he visits around. Anyways, guys, away from the beauties, the natural endowments of our respective countries and wherever it is that we've had the chance to walk upon, let's get back to the football, because today Chelsea did beat up against Bayer Leverkusen by 2-0 at Stamford Bridge. William Estavao in the 18th minute did open the scoring, while the game was left goalless for the better part of it until Joao Pedro scored, I think, around the 90th minute or so. So they are completing, the two summer recruits per se are completing the scoring for the Blues there. Very, very beautiful game. I did not watch the entirety of it, but the later part of the second half, I thought Tariq George, for the glimpse for the moments I did watch in the first half, he looked really, really good on the ball and things like that. How are you finding the weather this side, Tristan? Tristan, that question is for you to respond. I think you're a bad person because you do not support Barcelona. Pedri, I told you I support football first. And by the way, it's not that I do not support Barcelona. You'll be very surprised. Let me give you an example. One day I was watching a game at okay, let me give you this example. I'm one kind of person that I can't sit with you and watch a game together and you even wonder what team am I supporting, even if it is my own team, playing. Because if the opponent plays a good game, I'll cheer them on. I'll cheer up a good goal. I'll clap a good goal. So I appreciate football that much. As hurting as it can be that my team may have conceded, I oftentimes find myself appreciating the nature of the goal that is being scored, even against me, if it is that good enough. I'll give you an example. Do you remember when Real Madrid fans stood up and clapped for Ronaldinho Gaucho? It's not because they were supporting Barcelona. It's because they appreciated the goodness of the ball, of the game itself that he was delivering. How he went past, I think, was it Sergio Ramos and, all the other players. I think Guti was it Guti in that game? You can remind me of the little bit of history, but you can remember so well. So that's how I appreciate the sport or the game overall. And my favorite player is Ronaldinho Gaucho. What's yours? Remove the question mark and put a full stop. because that's the same answer I'll give you. So just remove your question mark and put a full stop. That would be my response. I had the actual source of the Nile is in Uganda, but conflicting claims. Who knows the actual source of the Nile? Whatever you hear as conflict, information regarding the source of the Nile, consider that as conjecture. The source of the Nile is in Uganda, particularly in Jinja, a district called Jinja, where you also find the Owens Falls Dam. So that's where you find the source of the Nile. Remember, we have the largest freshwater body in Africa. That's Lake Victoria, that is shared between Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. So it is that part it flows and opens up the Nile to flow until Egypt. What is with Arsenal signing Chelsea players? Cats or dogs? Dogs. Arsenal signing Chelsea players. Mikala, I'll put it the way Mikala simply put it. They have very good players. They do have very good players, and it's not only Arsenal that perhaps we should be also asking why do Chelsea sign Brighton players? They've signed Marco Cucurella, they've signed Robert Sanchez, they've signed Joao Pedro, they've signed Moises Caicedo. All those were former Brighton players. So I mean, when you have good players, they'll come for them. Look at Real Madrid. If a club goes there to sign their player, it's because that player is good. And yeah, I'll simply put it that way. But Chelsea, very victorious as they did return for their preseason. It's going to be a bit short because they had been part of the FIFA Club World Cup, which they went on to win. Tester says Arsenal are only signing Chelsea players because Chelsea do not give them game time. Partly not true, by the way. When you look at some of the players that Arsenal signed, it's not that Chelsea was not giving them playing time. It was for the simple reason that Chelsea were willing to sell. Particularly look at Noni Madueke. I think he played about more than 30 games in the Premier League last season. You look at Kai Havertz when he joined in 2023, he was a key starter at Chelsea. You look at Jorginho. Of course, Jorginho started falling behind in the pecking order, given his age. So, but at that time he knew he was a squad player. And Rodrigo, the GOAT, says bye. It was a pleasure having you with us this evening. I don't know why you're running away. When Pedro is here to engage you on all things between Madrid versus Barcelona. But thank you so much for sparing the moment to be with us. What did you eat this morning for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Dinner, I just had some fried eggs. For breakfast, just hot water, with a bit of cloves and then what? And I think a small cake. Then for lunch, it was Irish. That's as simple as I do. Where is Pedri? Pedri is around. Pedri, come and engage, Rodrigo before he signs out. What's with, okay, I think I've responded to that. If a player sits on the bench, they lose their form and they eventually feel they need to play somewhere else where they will be chosen in the starting 11. Yeah, that is also true. But also, it depends on why. For example, I'll give you an example that for Jorginho, even when he was coming to Arsenal, he knew he was going to be a squad player, that perhaps he would get more minutes, but Chelsea were in a period of transitioning away from the old guard because, the N'Golo Kantes had left, the Benjamin Mendy, the Senegalese goalkeeper, Kalidou Koulibaly, Thiago Silva, all those senior players were almost on their exit after helping, Chelsea win the 2021 UEFA Champions League title. But also with Thomas Tuchel eventually exiting. So, in that sense, Rodrigo, Pedro, what comment have I not read? Your last comment had been about what I had in terms of eating. I answered that. So, I don't understand the pass. So, anyways, then you look at a player like Douglas Luiz. Again, he had started to fall behind in the pecking order. When you look at Peter Cech, when he left Chelsea, they had Thibaut Courtois, who was well within their prime. Jose Mourinho was very reluctant that he be let go to Arsenal, and he came to Arsenal and became a number one goalkeeper. Arsenal were in that moment searching for a number one goalkeeper. Then you look at a player. Which other player have we not discussed? For Raheem Sterling, again, he was coming in as a squad player. He had already been, for him, he had particularly been told he was surplus to requirements. At Chelsea, that situation has not since changed. Same applies, by the way, at Chelsea. Raheem Sterling, Tosin Aderabio, Christopher Nkunku, Nicholas Jackson, all those are players that are expected to leave Chelsea in this summer. So that's a really it is expected that they will be leaving Chelsea in this transfer window. So it's not a surprise because, like we've always said, Chelsea have a bloated squad. They need to move on some players. They need to move on some players and create room, but also because they have an agreement with UEFA. I remember they were sanctioned and fined 31 million euros for being found in breach of the UEFA financial fair play rules, and because of that, they need to sort of balance their books, and by that, they need to move on some players, even though they are still bringing in some more players. But at the end of the day, they must show that the money coming in is almost an equivalent to what they are spending, things like that. So Nicholas Jackson, Christopher Nkunku, Ben Chilwell, Raheem Sterling, Axel Disasi, Renato Viega, all those are players that Chelsea expect to move on during this transfer window. We know that Atletico de Madrid were interested in the services of Renato Viega, but those rumors have since sort of fizzled a bit. They've sort of settled down a bit. Then Axel Disasi, Villarreal were interested again. Not much headway has been made in those negotiations. Then Nicholas Jackson, Bayern Munich inquired about his availability, and Newcastle hold some interest, although they seem to be going for an FC Porto striker. He's called I think he's called what? Samu Omorodion Agahoa, something like that. Should be. That's the name, something like that. So they are looking to move on players, but also so Nicholas Jackson, even AC Milan, Juventus, and Inter Milan have equally inquired about the situation revolving what it would take to sign him. Then Pedri, yesterday you weren't with us. We're discussing about the information you gave us regarding Marc-Andre ter Stegen. So you can give us an update more on Marc-Andre ter Stegen. Him being stripped of the captaincy and Ronald Araujo assuming all those roles in a bit. Anyways, Dixon says, "Are you a blue?" No, I'm not a blue. Pedro, you said, "Did you see the tragedy that struck me and left me sad for 2 days now, and it ruined my summer? Inigo Martinez leaving my beloved Barcelona. You chose to terminate his contract, and he's joining Al Nassr on a 1-year contract with an option to extend for a further year." So sometimes, by the way, and I think this happens with very many of us, sometimes we are particularly attached to particular players within our own clubs. Oftentimes there's that player that you have a soft spot for within your club, and I get the feeling that that's the same with you, Pedri, on this one. Ahewa Edson, hi Ahewa Edson, where are you joining us from? Your name sounds very Ugandan, Ahewa Edson, but it's good to have you on the Footballtribe UG broadcast. I kindly like the broadcast, but also please consider subscribing to the channel while you're here with us. He's a number two. He's the number 2 every season. Okay. Pedri says Arsenal. He was responding to Dixon. Then Testa says, I'm an Arsenal fan. Win or lose, I'm a Ghana lifetime fan of them. Yes. Then Sida says, why do we see more successful footballers from West Africa than North Africa rather than East Africa? First of all, North Africa is way more advanced when it comes to football than the larger part of the continent. That's for one. Two, in the southern part of the continent, South Africa leads the way because it has the best domestic league. Then when you go to West Africa, a good number of the players that have hacked it in Europe have players that quickly transitioned from, they oftentimes do not spend so much time playing there domestically. They quickly transition to smaller leagues around Europe, oftentimes in France, France, Spain, Italy, in those lower leagues. That's where they come through the ranks and get to the highest of levels. In East Africa, particularly, our football is still largely very underdeveloped. When it comes to Uganda, the situation is very much wanting, very much wanting, right from the academy level to the top most league in the country. That's the StarTimes Uganda Premier League. So, and yesterday we were discussing about, I think, no, not yesterday. I think either today morning or yesterday, there's a gentleman that did join us from South Africa. He's a Mamelodi Sundowns fan, and he was asking similar questions. And I was giving him an example, and I was telling him that we cannot compare, for example, the Uganda Premier League to the South African League. And I gave him an example that, for example, when the league ends, there's that prize money that is given. The winner of the Uganda Premier League is given 60 million shillings by the Federation of Uganda Football Associations. Now, 60 million Uganda shillings is the equivalent of about 20,000, actually less than under 20,000 US dollars. It's roughly about 17,000 US dollars. And then the bottom team, because usually it's a 16-team log, the very bottom team, the money they get is 500,000 Uganda shillings. Now, that translates to about 145 US dollars. A team that finishes bottom of the league. So now, how do you compare that with the rest of other leagues? And then how do you then expect such a country to be very competitive and sending so many players out there in Europe for them to thrive? It's because from the grassroots level, it has to be at a certain level. There are a few outliers here and there. For example, South Africans very well know about Dennis Masinde Onyango, arguably the best football expert in Uganda's history. They know a thing about David Oboa. He did play for Kaizer Chiefs and also went and played for Hearts in Scotland. Then we did have people like Livingstone in Babazi. I think he had a stint in France. So you do have that. So even when you go to Kenya, you'll find the outliers, the Victor Wanyamas. When you go to Tanzania, you'll find the Mbwana Samatas of this world. So there are a couple of outliers here and there, that is without a doubt. But predominantly, football is largely underdeveloped. And out of, let's say, Tanzania, Kenya, and Uganda, Uganda are bottom of the football chain. Even though when we get to the competitive stage of facing each other, which is an East African bit of rivalry, sometimes Uganda always gets the edge. But football is likely underdeveloped. Thank you so much for that question. AR says, you know everything about life. You must be a billionaire. Have 4 wives. No, I don't know everything about life, my friend. AR. I do not know what gives you that impression, but I don't know everything about life. Ahewa Edson says, what's going on, Ugandan team? They just beat up against Guinea by 3-0. Like I said, Rugan Impande did score the first goal. Brilliant header. I think it was Alan Okello who provided that assist. Then Alan Okello stepped up, the captain, when he won a penalty and converted it. Very brilliant penalty. By the way, you can go and check it online, particularly on X. Look for Alan Okello's penalty in Uganda Cranes versus Guinea. You'll be able to see it. Very brilliant penalty, and then Ahim Bisibwe scored the 3rd goal. So remember, Uganda is playing in the African Nations Championships. That's what we were speaking about earlier on. Pedri says, today Ter Stegen has come out with a clarification message by saying how much he loves the club and that he wants to fight for the club. All Barcelona fans want him gone. He makes us lose every game. It's again, I'll say this, for for every person that has served an entity or an organization in whatever capacity, I'm always one of those people who wants an amicable end to a relationship. For example, we do have a local saying here that where you live without quarreling is where you usually return. Where you live without quarreling is where you usually return. That's why you've had players like Thierry Henry return to Arsenal. You've had Didier Drogba leave Chelsea at one point and then come back during Jose Mourinho's second spell. You've seen Johnny Evans back at Manchester, United. Very recently, there've been reports. In fact, Pedri is the one that brought them to our fold, that Lionel Messi could rejoin Barcelona during the off-season period of the Major League Soccer to help him stay, fit and competitive ahead of the FIFA World Cup in 2026. So usually, I want it to end that way for a player. Now, for a player like André ter Stegen, who's, in my opinion, been a very, very good servant to Barcelona, to the extent that he was even given the captain's armband, I would have loved this relationship between him and the club to end in a much better way than it appears to be destined to end. Because by the time a captain is sanctioned for disciplinary measures and is stripped of the captaincy, it's not a good picture. I know he can bounce back from that kind of incident because I've seen it firsthand. You remember, I think it was around 2018 when Granit Xhaka faced the same fate at Arsenal and was stripped of the captaincy. He wanted to leave, and when Mikel Arteta walked in, he convinced him to stay, and by the time he left the club, he was a very, very popular figure within the dressing room and amongst the Arsenal families. So in that kind of look of things, then you've given us the example I can see of Ilkay Gundogan when he left Manchester City. So that's the kind of way I would always love players to leave their clubs. Look at Nicolas Pepe. Arsenal did not sell him. They had to terminate his contract, but it's a good relationship. He has nothing against the club. When he did return with Villarreal, he said he put on his Snapchat, I think, Snapchat story saying, happy to be back home. So you want to have that kind of feel, for players. And I often feel bad when the relationship ends on a bitter note, the way it appears it is going down that direction in the wake of Marc-Andre ter Stegen. So that's what I will say about that. Dixon says, what's your club? I do support Arsenal and Real Madrid, but I love football. Football is the first love in general. So I hope that, tells you the better picture. Because we can unregister him due to his injury and put Garcia instead, but he doesn't want to help at the club. Pedri, I don't know. Maybe I may not be well informed regards to the situation as is between ter Stegen and Barcelona and what's going on. But I have a strong feeling that this situation will eventually be resolved. I have a strong feeling because at the end of the day, no matter how big you are a player, of course the club takes precedence. And I remember being so mad in the way Raul Gonzalez was treated at Real Madrid on his exit, because for Real Madrid to give Cristiano Ronaldo the shirt number 7 after wearing the shirt number 9 in his debut campaign, that was 2009-2010, they had to literally force out Raul Gonzalez, and it didn't feel good for all the things that he had done for that club, really. So I feel that that situation will be resolved at some level eventually. Then you say Joan Laporta has said he doesn't want to see, hear about, or even speak to ter Stegen. He will be blocked away from the dressing room, and he won't be presented in the team's Joan Gamper team presentation. Okay. And again, we spoke about this when you play Como this Sunday. Okay. By the way, Como did play against Real Betis, and there were some very uncomfortable scenes in that game. I think involving a former Arsenal player, Hector Bellerin, and I don't know who else. But again, I'll remind you of what I've said before, that if the situation has gone this sour, then maybe the last resort for Barcelona will be to terminate his contract and pay him off, and he leaves. because that's basically what Barcelona will have to resort to. But it's not pretty hearing everything. All I recall is Victor Wanyama from Kenya. That's Sida saying, yeah, Victor Wanyama. There's been a couple of good players, but yeah, Victor Wanyama is the one that possibly hit the greatest of heights when it comes to being a Kenyan football player. Then, in fact, he was one of the tournament ambassadors. Victor Wanyama, then Mauricio Ngasa, as well as Dennis Masinde Onyango. They were the kind of faces that ACAF did use to present the African Nations Championship trophy. Then Pedri says, just look at Inigo Martinez. He's played for us for barely a year, and we're now crying because his left staggering is now growing. His 10 years he played for us by acting like this. I hear you on that. Look at Ilkay Gundogan. When the club asked him to leave, he immediately agreed to leave without being mad because he benefits the club. Okay, I think that was a good gesture. Again, those are the kinds of ways with which we want clubs to part with players. You also remember Sergio Aguero. He had just joined Barcelona. He had that heart issue that he developed, and they had to cut ties with him before he even kicked a ball with Barcelona. Prior to the start of the season, and there was no hard feelings for him. Then look at okay, I think we've seen that. Gundogan, Barcelona. Tester says, what is the most boring league you've ever watched? Most boring league I've ever watched. That might be difficult because, like all leagues can be, there are interesting games and boring games. I'll give you an example. There's a time I went and watched a Uganda Premier League game. It was between Vipers and a club called Bright Stars. Present day it's called Solito Bright Stars. And the game was so boring because a sort of a mid-table team at the time was playing a bigger team. So what the mid-table team came to do basically was to sort of to play in a compact manner, defend the ball so much, and it ended in a goalless draw. So it didn't look pretty. There was hardly a moment you could count on or you would remember at the end of the game. So it was that bad a game. Now, because I do not watch all leagues, I can't say that this is the most boring league, overall. But I've seen a couple of bad games from multiple leagues. There's a time I think I chanced myself into watching a game from the Zambian league, and it wasn't interesting. Just like you'd have. Even in the Premier League, you have games that bore. You have a goalless draw there that is a very, very boring game. There's a time Chelsea and Liverpool would play very boring games, especially when Liverpool was still under the charges of Rafa Benitez, Maudis, and Chelsea were still under Jose Mourinho. They would just come and play that sort of dull game and with no goals or it's one goal. Just even if they would end in a 1-1 draw, the overall feel about the game would be a boring feeling kind. So I hope that answers your question sufficiently. Pedri says, hi. Pedri says the French League One, in his opinion, he thinks that's the most boring league. Wojciech, this is a Polish name. Pedri, help me with the pronunciation of Woodkowski's name. He says, hello, boss. I good to have you, Woodkowski. I would want to believe that you're from Poland. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. But Pedri usually is the one that helps me, with pronunciations of some of these names that are a bit of a tongue twister for me. But anyways, guys, let's move on. Ethan Nwaneri, formally, it has been announced that he did sign a long-term contract with Arsenal. This is news that we are known for, I think, for the last 1 month or so, that he did renew his contract with the Gunners. It's a 5-year contract, which is very, very good news for Arsenal. And then speaking of Arsenal, tomorrow they're going to be up against Athletic Bilbao. And we're talking about a Bilbao side that did lose just a couple of days gone by, lose to Liverpool by 3-2. A lot of discussions. Arsenal fans that are in the chat room, do let me know what kind of team do you expect Mikel Arteta to assemble in his final official preseason game there. I think by the Man United are supposed to be in action against Fiorentina, but that game of Arsenal should be coming at around I think at around 7 p.m. East African time. It should be the kickoff time for that game. But let me check and confirm. Yes, Manchester United are going to be up against Fiorentina. The game will come at 2:45 p.m. East African time. Then Brighton will be up against Wolfsburg. That game will come at 1:30 p.m. Then, okay, I'm trying to find the Arsenal game. Yes, at 7 p.m. Arsenal. That's when they will be playing. Then Newcastle will be up against Atletico de Madrid still tomorrow. Today they were playing against Espanyol. I don't know how that game has ended, but last I checked, it was still, I think, 1-1. So Arsenal fans in the chat room, do let me know. Do let me know what kind of team do you expect for Mikel Arteta to assemble against Athletic Bilbao. And whatever team, I have a feeling that whatever team he starts with should be giving us an insight in what he thinks or he plans to do when he goes to Old Trafford on 17th. Hi, Master Tribe. That's Pedri. Who will win a 200-meter sprint between Usain Bolt and an ostrich? I think Usain Bolt would win that one. I know an ostrich can reach a speed of 45 kilometers per hour, but when Usain Bolt clicks in the first 50 meters, prime Usain Bolt was quite the sprinter. I think he did that, was it 18 or no? I think 19 to 20 seconds, the 200 meters, Arguably one of the biggest or best athletes of all time that we've seen in our lifetime. Of course, depending on, it's a subjective decision. I know some English people may come and say, for me, it's Mo Farah. Somebody else may say, maybe it's Justin Gatlin for him, or is it Lyle Williams, or, and things like that. But yeah, I think he would win that. Okay, reading into Arsenal, David Raya has been really, really off his best. I do not want to blame him that much, but I want him to pull up his stockings right before the season starts. He's been a very, very decent servant for Arsenal in the last 2 seasons, picking up the Golden Glove in the last of the 2 seasons. So I would want him to sort of pick up the slack and continue with the good performances. So I do not want him to be sloppy. I know he's just come on, it's pre-season, he had a bit of a long summer, wedded his wife and things like that. But yeah, I do expect David Raya to start in goal. At left back, while Ricardo Carafiori has been spotted in training and Mikel Arteta does expect him to be fit for that trip to Old Trafford, I think it is Maz Lewis Kelly who will start there. Then the centre back pairing, have a feeling it could be again Jakub Kiwior that starts alongside William Saliba, and then at right back Ben White. He's sort of trying to regain his best form ever since he recovered from that knee surgery. And then you have Julian Timber, who is not yet 100% fit. He also had his minor surgery, I think, on his ankle at the tail end of last season. So while Julian Timber was fully fit, he's one of those players that can pick up very quickly. I do think Ben White will start this one. Christian Mosquera has shown us already flashes of his brilliancy, very fast, very good in V1 situations. But I still feel that he may come off the bench unless Mikel Arteta wants to try out a partnership that involves William Saliba and Christian Mosquera. That means for the first time you would have a defender. You would have 2 centre backs, with one being a non-left-footed centre-back. The kind of situation that he had to play under when he had just come into the club, and that's why his first signing was Pablo Mari from Flamengo, and he was a left-footed centre-back. So that should be the composition of the back four. Kivio, Saliba, Skelly, and Ben White in starting. Then in the midfield, I would have loved it to be okay. Before I get to the midfield, Testa says Arsenal will step up and attack. Will set up an attacking team. Athletic Bilbao is more defensive. Okay. Tribe. What do you think of Ivan Guessant? I think he's fantastic. Yeah, very fantastic player that is joining Aston Villa. He did score 12 goals and provided, I think, 8 assists in 33 league appearances last season in the French League One. French-born, although he does represent the Ivorian national team, I'll be honest with you, I've not watched him enough to see how he will fare in the Premier League, but his numbers, if they are anything to go by, it does look really, really good. Yes, tester of life. You remember the person I was telling you about from South Africa, the fan of Mamelodi Sundowns? It was Son of Soweto. He's the one we were having an engagement with yesterday. So good to have you back on the broadcast. Son of Soweto says, hello, Papa Football Pundits. Thank you so much for, reuniting with us once again. Pedri says, hi, Papa Tribe. Pedri, why do you like to pick up on every nickname and thing that is thrown in my direction? But anyways, when it comes to Arsenal's midfield composition, I do expect Son of Soweto. Give me what were your thoughts about South Africa's game versus Algeria? Same goes for testers. I don't know if you had the chance to watch it because usually these games come when you're at work. But give me what your impressions were about, the Bafana that were up against the Desert Foxes of Algeria. Anyways, so Arsenal's midfield, my preference would be that we get to see Martin Zubimendi start alongside Declan Rice and Martin Odegaard. I want to see how, if there's good chemistry among the start midfield, but also the way Mikel Arteta for the last 2 friendly games is consistently started with Christian Nogard. I wouldn't be too surprised if it is Christian Nogard that starts ahead of Martin Zubimendi alongside Declan Rice and Martin, Odegaard. So it wouldn't really come out as a surprise to me because Christian Nogard has fared really well. I think he deserves a little bit of credit based on what we've seen so far. And given that he's more Premier League proven and he has that Premier League experience, it wouldn't be much of a surprise if come Sunday, August 17th, he does get the nod ahead of Martin Zubimendi. But I do love Martin Zubimendi's passing range and the way he sort of controls, the game. It's because I do not know your name. Son of Soweto. My name is Robert K. Sakos. Yeah, but Robert is the name. Son of Soweto, South Africa only had 2 shots on target, and the Arabs had 4. I mean, that is not so wide of our games. You do get those. Go back to the game between Uganda and Algeria, and I think Uganda only had 1 shot on target. So we really didn't trouble much Algeria, and in that second half, they really swept us off our feet. But thank you so much for your comment regarding that game. Then when it comes to the forward lines, of course, I mean, I don't know, but I would love to see Noni Madueke start at the left wing, and we see what he's really made of. Bukayo Saka is a guaranteed starter, so whether he starts or not, I really am not hell-bent on that. Victor Gyökeres, we do expect him to start. In any case, it's not to say that we ought to put pressure on him, but I would love to see Max Dorman start again. Even if he starts and he plays for only 30 minutes and substituted out, I would want to see how he copes with the pressure of starting, because we've only seen him come off the bench and that kind of thing. 390 passes completed. Was that for Algeria or for South Africa? Okay. Oh, you say South Africa only had, no, but we had ball possession, which to me seems useless play. 390 passes completed, only 2 corners. Again, by the way, I think when it comes, I think this has become the way South Africa play, because they want to dominate possession, they want to control the game. That's how they want to play. Now, sometimes they oftentimes falling short when it comes to scoring the goals. Even I know it, I know the team that South Africa did bring is not the composition of their best, even for players that are playing domestically. I know it's not the best of their teams, but because of Pisto Motsbane, because of coaches like Rulani, and maybe some other coaches that are within the ranks of the South African domestic league that I'm not privy to, they've tried to create that brand of football, but predominantly I've seen it with Mamelodi Sundowns. They want to possess the ball. They want to build it from out of the back. And I remember it not being Dennis Masinde Onyango's strongest suit, to build out from the back and things like that. But yeah, for us as fans, oftentimes it's a frustration, because at the end of the day, possession doesn't give you more credits. It's about who puts the ball in the back of the net. It's about creating those goal scoring opportunities. It's about defending with your life when push comes to shove and things like that. So I completely understand that sort of feeling. You say Bafana can't finish in the last third space. We usually panic. I do not think it's only a Bafana kind of problem, by the way. It's very typical of many African teams. Like, they will carry the ball, and in that final third, they are often devoid of ideas. I've seen it one too many times, particularly with Uganda, and I've always thought we lack the suitable number 8 and number 10s that are capable of playing that defense or midfield splitting passes. We often lack that. And when it comes to Bafana, although they have players within that mold, again, there's a way, I don't know, it's like when teams get in the final third, they play with a bit of caution. They'll build the ball well out of the back or out of the midfield, depending on what zone within which they want the ball back. And when it comes to that final third, it's like they then step on the brakes and things like that. Uganda won 3-0. Yes, Uganda won 3-0. They were very, very dominant in that game, by the way. It was a very dominant performance from the Uganda Cranes. So how did Uganda do in their game? Oh, okay. Testa has responded to you on that one. Then Testa says, backline, Uran Timber, Gabriel, Ben White, and Lewis Skelly. Midfield, Martin Odegaard, Martin Zubimendi, Saka, Madueke, Norgard, and Jokers. Oh, okay. That means you're going for a double pivot of Christian Norgard as your number 6. And then you're pushing Martin Zubimendi. I'm trying to interpret what you've given us. Then you're putting Martin Zubimendi to play as an 8. It's a role that I have a feeling that he can execute really well, by the way, playing as the number 8 in a team. But I do not think Mikel Arteta is going to test it right now. Then in the back line, you say you want Gabriel and Uran Timber. If the previous game is anything to go by, Gabriel really, really looked off of it. Of course, we know he's just returned from, his hamstring injury that required surgery, and he's far from, being his best. But I think he will eventually get minutes, but I do not think he will get to start. Then Uran Timber, same situation. He's not yet 100% fit. I know he's one kind of player that will give you the shift even when he's struggling with injury. I remember him speaking about going into the return leg against PSG. He was so desperate to play because he wanted the team to win. He did not train for 2 days. And even the last day of training, he barely trained. He just, had a bit of warm-up. And then, of course, sometimes they get those injections, the painkillers, and he went and put in the grind because he wanted the team to win. But given the sort of team that you've given, then you've omitted William Saliba to give a Ben White. I think in this case you want Ben White to start as the right-footed centre back. which wouldn't be bad. He's played there before, although predominantly all his Arsenal career predominantly he's played as a right back. There was a question that if Ben White and Urian Timber were both fully fit, who would you choose to start in the right back position? Do let me know at tester there. Who would you choose to start in your midfield? Then quickly, let's also, in the meantime, let's also digest the latest from the transfer news, because PSG did reach an agreement with Bournemouth for the transfer of Ilya Zabani. That deal is going through. He's yet to, by the time of this podcast, he had yet to receive the green light from FC Bournemouth to travel for his medical, but that deal is agreed in principle. Tessa says definitely Ben White. I think, I don't know. Now, here's where I'm torn when it comes to the two players, and I'll indulge me on this one. If you want to play when your right back is your inverting defender, then Urian Timber will execute that word for you. So he starts at right back. For me, if you want the right back to be the one inverting, as opposed to the left back. However, if you want one that overlaps and creates a perfect diamond, a perfect combination between Bukayo Saka and Martin Odegaard, then I do agree with you. It got to be Ben White. But yeah, Ilya Zabani to PSG is a here we go. Newcastle new centre back for Luis Enrique set to sign a 5-year deal after a fee package worth 67 million euros probably agreed with Bournemouth. Zabani will travel ahead of the UEFA Super Cup for a medical. One more key addition for PSG there. So that deal is equally done. Then we did receive some reports during the course of the day that PSG want at least £26 million for Gianluigi Donnarumma after deciding not to offer him a new contract. That was according to Ben Jacobs. Now, I mean, if this news has any truthness to it, either of Chelsea or Manchester United should be running their socks off to go and sign Gianluigi Donnarumma. Whether you want to join any of them, that's a whole different story. But if I'm one of those clubs, I'm running to sign that goalkeeper, really. Then Thomas Partey did complete his first training session as a new Villarreal player. Good to see him back on the playing turf. Then Al Nassr did open talks to sign Kingsley Coman from Bayern Munich. Club-to-club negotiations did start, as Coman is now a top target for Al Nassr at wing position. This one, man. Apologies, guys, on the internet glitch there. Apologies, guys, on the internet glitch there. I don't know. Every time my subscription is almost due, these things tend to happen. I don't know what my ISP, why they do that, but these things tend to happen. So apologies on the internet glitch. I hope you can indulge me on that one. But there are some comments there. You say, what is your prediction for the top 3 across these 4 leagues? Serie A, French League 1, Bundesliga, and the Premier League. In the Premier League, for the top, you ask for top 3. Top 3 in the Premier League, I'll go Liverpool, Arsenal, Manchester City. That's what I'll go with in the Premier League. In the Spanish La Liga, I'll go Barcelona, Atletico Madrid, Real Madrid. In the Italian Serie A, I'll go with Napoli. I'll go with Inter Milan. No, not Inter Milan, by that. Not Inter Milan. I'll go with Napoli. I'll go with Juventus. Who is the third? Who is the third? Inter third. Maybe. But I wouldn't be surprised if AC Milan bounced back. Then in the French League 1, PSG, Olympique Marseille, and maybe Lille. Safar Ali, hi Safar Ali, good to have you back on the broadcast. Safar Ali is from Turkey. We've been without him for, I don't know, so many weeks have gone by. Then in the German Bundesliga, I'll go with Bayern Munich. I'll go with Borussia Dortmund. I'll go with VfB Wolfsburg. That would be my top three in those leagues. If you guys have a different opinion, please do not hesitate to put it down in the comment section. Do not hesitate to put it down in the comment section. But those will be my predictions. Those will be my predictions in regards to the top three out of all those leagues as has been posed to me. Oh, I hope you didn't miss them. I hope you didn't miss them. But if in case there's any that you missed out on, just put down a comment and I'll repeat them. But I've given them. In the Premier League, I went for, you say Premier League, Liverpool, Arsenal, Man City. Yes, that's my belief as well. Those are the ones I gave for the Premier League. Spanish La Liga, Barcelona, Atletico de Madrid, and Real Madrid. Son of Soweto, top three league in the world, PSL in South Africa, then the Brazilian Serie A and the Egyptian League. That's his top three leagues in the world. For Son of Soweto, he said he doesn't want European football, by the way. He called it colonizers football. That was the particular reference he used. But anyways, so are targeting Kingsley Coman. The Newcastle are considering making a move for Samu Agahoa from AFC Porto, the 21-year-old striker. High among small number of options to bolster the attack. No formal approach or guarantee it happens, but the Spanish international, liked by Newcastle, that was according to to David Austin of the Athletic earlier on today. Then Yohan Wissa is trying to push for an exit from Brentford with Newcastle and Tottenham Hotspur also all interested, even some Saudi Pro League clubs. However, he would prefer to stay within the Premier League. But apparently, Brentford want to first secure a replacement before they can let him go. And among the replacements, they do appreciate Dango Ouattara from AFC Bournemouth. That's the player that they do appreciate. Serie A, you say Inter Milan, you say Napoli, and Atlanta. With Atlanta changing manager and appointing Ivan Juricic, I'm really not convinced. We are talking about a manager who lost 3 jobs last season. At Roma, at Southampton, what was the other? 3 jobs. Because when Daniel De Rossi got sacked at Roma, he replaced him, and then he was the one sacked before Claudio Ranieri assumed the role. And then he went to Southampton and he resigned. I think after they lost to Tottenham Hotspur by about 3 goals to nil. That was after December or around December. Was it? No, I think it was after December, but during the course of the season. So I'm not so enthusiastic about Atlanta, if I'm being honest. In any case, I'm more enthusiastic about AC Roma under the charges of Gian Piero Gasperini as the new manager to see how things will fare. League One, you're going with PSG, Marseille, and Stade Brest. I went for PSG, Marseille, and Lille. So we have a difference of opinion on the third option there. I find it strange when I see Africans watching Western leagues. It's like someone eating their kids' food. Wow. It's unfortunate that you feel that way. But by the way, we also consume domestic leagues. I know for a fact that Testa pays allegiance to a particular club. I do not remember particular. I think it was Sundowns as well in South Africa. And while you may not have been with us for long, I used to consume a lot of domestic league because I was a writer, as a digital journalist for one of the pioneer entertainment websites in the country. That was between 2014 and the end of 2016. And then I moved on and wrote for another website. So I did consume my local league. But it has so many issues that sometimes leave you heartbroken. Not the results, but the composition at large. Atesta says Orlando Pirates. Thank you for the correction on that one. So people supporting European football does not mean that they do not support their domestic leagues. I have a friend of mine. He travels whatever distance to go and watch his domestic club, which is called Chitara, a football club. But he's a staunch Manchester United fan. So, do you write about African football? Yeah, I used to. Before I left that, that bit of journalism and went into a totally different industry. Between July 2014, and 2019, I was writing about African football and European football. But between July 2014 and 2016, I was only writing about African football, with Uganda being ahead of that. So I left that. Then at some point, I went into painting. I did painting work. I do digital marketing and, social media management consultancy and things like that. So, but I've also done, work with, NGOs. I've done consultancy work with different organizations. So sometimes it's what path life leads you into that may switch you off, particular things. But yeah, there are lots of people reading about football. There used to be. Now websites are no longer thriving as they used to be back in the days. Today, websites do not have as many readers as they used to be back in the days because people are consuming the content that is written on websites more in video format, and that's why now podcasts are thriving. So it's a bit of a change of medium of delivering information. It's not to say that they are not still active or working. They are still working in very many countries, but overall, there's that bit of shift in content consumption. So, and I remember in 2016 when I resigned from that first job. It was, I think, about a space of about 3.5 months before I got another role again as a lead content writer. And it wasn't just about football. I used to write about local sport. So if it was netball with the She Cranes, playing in the African Netball Championships in South Africa, playing against teams like Malawi, I would write about that. If it meant that the Bombers, that Ugandan boxers going to Glasgow in 2014, there for the Commonwealth Games, I would write about that. So news was news. If it was, of course, I could not write about. I did not write about all sporting disciplines, things like rugby, cricket, basketball. I didn't really write about those, but I wrote about pool table. When the Nile Special Football pool table team, I think they went, was it Zambia for a certain tournament? That was around 2014, 2015. So yeah, that's the little bit of history of it. Of course, I did not write about swimming. I didn't write about football, badminton, the domestic netball league. But those are also sporting disciplines that do go on in Uganda. I used to write about the university football league. Ugandan universities had a league, or they have a league. It was the PEPS University Football League. That they were participating in. So yeah, that's the bit of history and context that I can give you. So it's not like that we do not like our domestic football and sporting engagements. We do follow them, but particularly for me, I've been honest to tell people that I no longer follow our domestic football as I used to, follow it then for different reasons. Let me see. The other is okay. Okay, I think I read that. A son of Soweto says top five clubs in the world is Sundowns one, two Al Ahli, number three is Mazembe, Pirates, and everyone else in number five. So that means you do not rank the likes of Wydad Casablanca. You do not rank them that high. Then son of Soweto says it's not unfortunate, Lolo. Okay. Testa says La Liga, Barcelona, Real Madrid, Villarreal. Wow, you have a lot of confidence in Villarreal, but I think there could be a force going into next season. I think Pedro, if you are still here with us, he would maybe agree with you. But I think now maybe Atletico Madrid have gone through so many changes because they're bringing in so many new players and moving on, a certain cohort of players. But I feel if those players do click, it's going to be quite the force. Son of Soweto says, okay, I think I've answered that about writing about football and what I do now. There are lots of people are reading. I think I've responded to that as well. Testa says Bundesliga, Bayern Munich, RB Leipzig, and Borussia Dortmund. Wow, RB Leipzig. I'm not so convinced by them if last season was anything to go by, but they will really, really need to bounce back in better fashion if they are to achieve that kind of, prediction that you're giving them. Then son of Soweto says, oh, I met the two Ugandan rugby players who went for a competition in Scotland and then ran away to seek asylum in England. One was called Benon or something. Okay, now, I mean, that's very common with in African sport. When players go for international tournaments and they do not want to retire because they believe there's greener pastures there, and it's not just a belief; it's the honest truth. I do remember Uganda hosted, I think it was Sekafa, and players, I think from Somalia, did not want to go back. Just the Somalis team, they did not want to go back. We do have a large refugee Somalis community here in Uganda, So those things, unfortunately, they do happen, or fortunately, depending on whichever way you see it. And I do not blame them by that. I do not blame them because I'll give you an example. We've had a lady. What's her name? She's called Peace what? I've forgotten the name. She was the captain of the She Cranes in years gone by. She used to play, I think, for a certain netball team in the UK. And every time other players went for international tournaments, they did acknowledge they did not want to come back because they would want an opportunity there, because here you play in a league a netball league that has no sponsor. We also we had a volleyball league that had teams like Nemo Stars, but I mean, you had to hear about them because financially they are struggling. They do not have the resources to, sustain some of these competitions. Then there's this new sport. I don't know how they call it, but it's like canoeing, the competition. There's a different name for it, where they ride the canoes. That's kind of sport. So you have visited the best country on this side of heaven. Did you visit? Okay. You say go to the city of Pretoria. Guys, personally, I've never been out of Uganda. It's one of those things that it's one of those jinx that I wish to break. In case the comment was geared to me, I've never been out of Uganda. As maybe that was meant for Tristan up there because he's the one from USA and currently in South Africa, and then test of life is from Gauteng. So maybe you're asking him to visit Pretoria. Son of Soweto, I'm from South Africa. How are you, man? as son of Soweto, no doubt blame them either. People must do what they have to do to survive as long as they are not hurting anyone. That's true. And then you say hello, Tester. So yeah, I mean, because let's even if it's in South Africa, I seem to remember. You remember when South Africa hosted the African Nations Championships, Chan, in 2014? I remember our best player then for that team of Uganda Cranes was Unicent Amu, and that team had players like Dennis Iguma. I think it had players like Joseph Benson Ochaya. Mm, who else? I was, I think was it Joseph Nsubuga? I think was part of that team. He had been at SC Villa at the time. Maybe I stand to be corrected on Joseph Nsubuga, but even when players go just down South Africa, once they play well, as they play in a tournament, they are speaking to local clubs, Super Sport United. They're speaking to Kaiser Chiefs. They are speaking to the Mamelodies and other lesser teams, to see if the Amazulu Stars, to see if they can be signed, because they know the South African league is better, and when it comes to pay, it pays better, because it is better for a Ugandan player to go to South Africa and let's say earn 1,500 US dollars per month, if that is what they are offering, as opposed to staying in Uganda and is on $200 a month or $150 a month. So that's the nature of the sport. You say, okay, Testa says it's a pleasure. Okay, you say, Testa, it's a pleasure to meet you. Yeah, South African bromance. You can take it on from there. I do not know who is African, who speaks, is it Afrikaans, the language Afrikaans, and then Sizulu. I like Sizulu because of the similarities it has with one of our local languages here, Luganda. Now, for example, I don't know. I'm trying to remember a word like, how do you guys call water in let's say in Sizulu? Amazi. Is it like that? You guys have that, and then here it's Amazi, something like that. But there's a bit of interest in there. It's a pleasure to meet you as well, and you and I both know the problems we face on a daily basis. So I am wishing you a blessed last 4 months of 2025. Thank you so much. Anyways, let's retreat back to some of the transfer gossip and speculation that has been making the rounds today. Before we look to wrap this one up, it's 41 minutes past midnight already in Uganda. That's how fast time is flying. Meanwhile, Robert Lewandowski is out due to a hamstring problem in his left thigh. Barcelona have not communicated any return date, but they say the striker is unavailable for Sunday's game. And I think that's a game that Pedro was telling us about. On Sunday, they will be playing against Como. You remember Como under the charges of Francesc Sola Fabregas, a former Barcelona player, and his recovery will determine his return. That's how simply they did put it. So then Lodri, this is just coming in. Lodri has suffered an injury setback and will be out at least until mid-September. Again, mid-September is okay. He will only miss about 3 games to the start of the season. So because after the first 3 games in the Premier League, then we'll go for the September international break, for which our teams, will be playing maybe in the FIFA World Cup qualifiers there. So no worries. And it's 2 weeks of that, and then before the leagues return, things like that. Anyways, then we've discussed the issues with Marc-Andre Stegen at Barcelona, him being stripped of the captaincy and things like that. I will discuss that. Pedri was bringing us more insights about that situation and more. So let's quickly run through the latest transfer speculation and gossip as compiled by BBC Sport. PSG expect offers from Chelsea, Manchester United, or Inter Milan for Italian goalkeeper Gianluigi Donnarumma, who has become surplus to requirements at the French club. That's according to ESPN. Newcastle are set to make a bid of £30 million for Brentford's 28-year-old DR Congo forward, Yohan Wissa. That's according to the Times, while Newcastle have opened talks with PSG over a deal for 26-year-old French striker Randal Kolo Muani, according to Florian Plettenberg, although those reports have equally been dismissed by some sources, as Randal Kolo Muani wants to join Juventus, where he spent last season on loan. What's your prediction there for this next season? My prediction, in regards to the Premier League title, I'm still inclined towards Liverpool. They look more complete team, because when I assess Arsenal, all they've done is replace players that they've lost in this transfer window and then made one addition, while all those replacements and the one addition do improve them overall. I still have that feeling that Liverpool are still slightly ahead. Liverpool are without their imperfections, especially when it comes to their defense. I feel they need bodies there, but I'm still inclined towards Liverpool, and then Arsenal coming second. Unfortunately, the fourth consecutive season, they will need to prove me otherwise. And then Manchester City are a bit of a known quantity. And the reason for that is particularly because of the many players that have come in between January and the summer, because they've signed about I think about nine players so far between January and now. Prince Toby says, what's your favorite football team? Football is my favorite sport. Then favorite team is Arsenal, Real Madrid, but football is the first love. So, Testa, you look at Man City and say, especially in that midfield, and with these issues of Rodri, because the expectation that we all had is that if Rodri bounces back he recovers well from that injury and he fits in the way he was before suffering the ACL injury, then Man City could be a different monster. Now, I do suspect that it could be a midfield of Mateo Kovacic alongside Tijani Reinders and whoever Pep Guardiola may choose in the attacking midfield role. It could be Bernardo Silva, who is now the captain. It could be Phil Foden. It could be Ryan Cherki playing in that role. I do not know. And then you get to have Savinho, Omar Mamouche, and Brad Erling Haaland. In the back line, of course, we expect Ruben Diaz, Joshko Gvardiol, Matheus Nunes, because they've yet to sign a right back. They remain interested in Tino Livramento, and then Ryan Ashnory at left back, and the goalkeeper, of course, being Ederson Morales. So it's a good team, but how they all fit together, I'm really eager to see. So that's why I say they're a bit of an unknown quantity, but because of the manager they have in Pep Guardiola, they can't blow away anybody. And I think we cannot take that away from them. Our Golden Boot candidates this season, Golden Boot candidates. Brad Erling Haaland, particularly Alexander Isak, and this is a big if he makes the switch to Liverpool, he will be a serious contender. Then Mo Salah is going to be a serious contender. Those will be my top three for the Golden Boot going into next season. The rest, I'll have to be convinced, because we do not know how Benjamin Sesko is going to pick up at Manchester United. He could blow everybody out of the water. I do not see that happening, although Victor Gyökeres at Arsenal need to show that they can play centrally, as opposed to always popping the ball in the wings to Bukayo Saka, Gabriel Martinelli, or whoever, and try and play centrally, find those line-breaking passes that can throw balls, and they have to be quick about it, that can find Victor Gyökeres if he is to thrive with the rest of the team. But if they keep, popping those balls sideways, it's going to be a bit difficult finding him oftentimes, because teams are now, they know Arsenal, that's how they play. They pop the ball sideways and then teams retreat back into their defensive shape quickly because of Arsenal's sloppiness or slowness in that transition. So transition-wise, Arsenal is still slow. If you want to see a perfect example of a quick transition, look at a team like Liverpool. They're very perfect at that. And in any case, that goal Arsenal considered against Villarreal should be another example. You need that quick, line breaking pass that gets your striker get moving. So again, we'll wait to see if Arsenal can adapt to Victor Gyökeres's abilities. Then he could be right up there with the challengers for the Golden Boot. If you went through the 97 goals Victor Gyökeres scored, a fraction of them came from penalties. Yes, a good fraction of them came as penalties. But personally, I wouldn't want to blame him for that, because penalties are also part of the sport. Because the question would be, how often was he involved in the actions resulting to those penalties? Because if you're a key actor in those resultant penalties, then that puts you right there, because it means you're already trying to score, and then you got fouled. But also, even if you take away his penalties, for example, in the domestic league, he scored 39 goals last season. Let's assume, because I do not know this for a fact, but let's assume that let's say 19 of those were penalties. He would still have his 20 goals, and that's a good number. Now, of course, the number we all know that it wasn't 19. So, and by the way, all Arsenal want out of Victor Gyökeres is 20-25 goals. That's all they will be asking for. They're not going to ask for the 39 numbers. But also, we are yet to find out who is going to be the penalty taker. So far, Martin Odegaard has taken all responsibility every time Arsenal have won a penalty. So let's wait and see whether that responsibility could be shifted to Victor Gyökeres. At the end of the day, Arsenal need to help him score as quickly as possible to sort of to get that confidence. You remember when Kai Havertz was struggling at the start of his Arsenal career, and they gave him that penalty against FC Bournemouth. So if it requires that, they need to get him in a goal scoring situation to break the ice and take off that initial pressure. Hi, Bruno. Good to have you back, Bruno. It's been a while. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're well. Tester, you want 50? Wow, that's quite ambitious. Again, the 50 is possible, but if Arsenal can adapt to his strength, and part of adapting to his strength is Arsenal finding a way to play through the spine, to play through the middle, the central area. Now, every time they get the ball, Martin Odegaard needs to be looking at the top of his shoulder to see what kind of run is Victor Gyökeres making, because he's not going to be dragging himself so far back the way Kai Havertz tends to do, or Gabriel Jesus. You remember when Arsenal were beating Chelsea 5? You remember that long pass through ball with the outside of his foot that Martin Odegaard gave to Kai Havertz? He needs to be looking to play those kinds of passes very often. Bukayo Saka, once he gets on the run, he needs to keep his eyes up in the air to see what kind of run is the striker making, because now they have a natural number 9, whether it's Martinelli on the other side, whether it's Martin Zubimendi, who is capable of playing that, a midfield splitting pass, or even over the top kind of ball. So they need to seek him and play to his strength. But if they do not do that and play the way they have been playing, that they did play last season, then Victor Gyökeres is also going to find it hard to find opportunities. Last game against Villarreal, they struggled to find him. He was making the right runs, but they were not finding him, because instead of somebody attempting to play that pass, they were holding on to the ball, and again ending up passing it sideways or even turning backwards. So if Mikel Arteta can adapt his team or shift it to play in that kind of manner and style, then Victor Gyökeres will have no problem thriving. So that's how I sort of feel or see it. If everything is to go perfectly for the Swedish striker. Then also, the Magpies are also considering making a move for FC Porto and Spanish striker Samu Agahoa, that one we've spoken about, according to the Athletic. Then Senegalese forward Nicholas Jackson would prefer to stay in the Premier League if he leaves Chelsea this summer with Newcastle a possible destination. Jackson would like to explore a transfer away from that's according to the Sun Bayer. Then Jackson would like to explore a transfer away from Chelsea this month, with AC Milan and Juventus also interested in signing him. That's according to the Mail. While Manchester United will look to sign a defensive midfielder and a new goalkeeper now, they have finalized the pursuit of Slovenian striker Benjamin Sesko. That's according to the Telegraph. They've been linked with the potential move to Carlos Baleba of Brighton and Hove Albion, while they remain interested in Gianluigi Donnarumma. Then Southampton are holding out for at least £50 million for their England under-21 winger Tyler Nibbling, with Everton hoping to do a deal. That's according to the Liverpool Echo. Do you think Benjamin Sesko will give us a hard time on the opening day because we did not sign him? I don't know if he will, but he will be. Such players are oftentimes desperate to prove a point. So I think he would want to prove a point if he does start. But for me, again, that for me is a non-issue. If he scores a goal and we end up winning the game by 3-1 or 2-1, I'm happy with that. So because if he does score a goal and Arsenal win, then it won't matter. But if he does score and Arsenal do not win, then it will become a talking point. But again, I'm not really concerned about that much because he's far from a finished product. And I hope that Ruben Amorim can turn him into what the world thinks that he could be, the best striker in the coming years. But I'm not too threatened about that, because the reason as to why I feel that is because I've seen William Saliba and Gabriel Magalhaes deal with more threatening, attacking lines. And you remember how they dealt with Victor Gyökeres when he was still at Sporting Lisbon, So you remember how, of course, Gabriel Magalhaes wasn't around when we first off with PSG, but you remember how they handled Kylian Mbappe, Vinicius Junior, You remember how they handled that situation. So I'm not too scared about that. Then also, French side Lille are targeting a loan move for Spurs Czech goalkeeper Anton Kinski. The 22-year-old is on their radar should current first choice goal stopper Lucas Chevalier join PSG. That's according to the clip in France. Then Brentford are interested in signing Bournemouth winger Dango Ouattara. The 23-year-old Burkina Faso international has made 32 Premier League appearances for the Cherries last season. That's according to Sky Sports. Hi Papa Pedri. The newly promoted side, Leeds United, are interested in 20-year-old Brighton midfielder Facundo Benanote. The Argentine international is also wanted by Borussia Dortmund, according to the Yorkshire Evening Post. So that's the latest from the transfer gossip and speculation as compiled by BBC Sport. Then you say I'm off now. You must enjoy the rest of the evening, tribe, and everyone else watching. It's always a pleasure to be here for this stream. We'll be back tomorrow. Thank you so much, testers of life, for always sparing the time to be with us and for your invaluable contribution to our conversations on these streams and everything else. Guys, it's so far been 1 hour and almost 40 minutes of us doing this. But guys, let me remind you, in case you're interested in learning some digital skills like cybersecurity, web design, and coding, do not forget to check out our colleagues at Ebo State. They're based in Kasanga, Kampala, Uganda. I'll leave their link down in the description so that you can check them out at your most convenient time. They do offer in-person and online training sessions, and they do help their trainees find jobs in the dynamic digital world. You do qualify for a 5% discount if you do sign up with them this month. So, but thank you so much, testers. Thank you so much, Bruno. Thank you so much, Pedri. Thank you so much, Prince Toby. At some point you said 5. I don't know what you meant with that, but thank you so much, son of Soweto, for being part of today's broadcast. Who else? Thank you so much, Wojciech. Wojciech, thank you so much. Then who else? Dixon Sida, thank you so much. Ahebwa Edson, thank you so much for being part of today's broadcast as well. Rodrigo Gott, thank you so much. It is always a pleasure to see you around. Who else? Allwin, Tristan Leonard, it was a pleasure seeing you around. LFC, always a pleasure to see you around. Our team. Okay. Hello. Are we back? Is our audio now in check? Oh, okay, okay. Yes, yes. We have the audio back. Apologies, guys. Microphone went out of battery. But okay, let me run through them again. Some of the friendly games that should be coming your way tomorrow that I want you guys to look forward to. And these are all coming tomorrow. Kabizi will be up against Cordoba. Valencia are going to be up against Torino. Manchester City will play Palamo at 10 p.m. And Nottingham Forest will be up against Al Qadash. That's from the Saudi Pro League at 9:45 p.m. Real Betis will play against Malaga at 9:30. Monopoly will be against Lecce. Mallorca will be up against Hamburger SP. Deportivo La Corona will play La Havre. Real Sociedad B will be up against FC Bournemouth. Racing Santander will be up against Cagliari, while Napoli will play Girona. And Nantes will Nantes. That one looks to be over. I don't know. There's an R or alert on it. Aston Villa will be up against Olympique Marseille. Lyon will play Getafe at 8 p.m. Those games coming at 8 p.m. Eibar will be up against Deportivo Alves. Auxerre will be up against Levante. AFC Bournemouth will be up against Real Sociedad. Genoa will play against Stade Rennes. RB Leipzig will be up against Lens from France. While Fulham will be up against Eintracht Frankfurt. Brighton will play VfB Wolfsburg. While Brest will be up against Sassuolo. Arsenal against Bilbao. VfB Stuttgart against Bologna. Newcastle against Atletico de Madrid. Angers up against Lorient, while Hoffenheim will play Metis. Wolves against Celta Vigo. West Ham against Lille, while AC Milan will be against Leeds. Will be against Lille. Everton will play AC Roma, and much more. So, guys, allow me to wrap it here and wish you a wonderful weekend ahead. Stay blessed for now. Bye bye.